Bonsoir mes amis et bienvenue à El Partido, encore podcast sur le football espagnol. Yet another Spanish football podcast, as always, with a nostalgic twist. I'm your host. Welcome to our El Partido. I keep doing that every single week at the minute. No Paul tonight, unfortunately, but I'm delighted to say I'm being joined by one of my regular co-hosts from a previous podcast and one of our fantastic guests we have on regularly here on the podcast. It is Mr. Matt Harrison, or Monsieur Matt Harrison.
Ça va? I don't know much.
Ça va bien, et toi? I think I'm reaching my limit now.
I haven't done French since I was in year 9, so I just remember coming into classrooms and saying ça va, and then everyone going ça va bien, merci. But that's about as far as I go.
Well, I was fortunate enough to do French up to A level, and was with humbleness was quite good at it. And then fell in love with Spanish football, so never really get a chance to use it apart from when we go to like Disneyland. I'm not often in France, Matt, so yes, Spanish would have been a bit more useful, I reckon.
I did learn how to say once because I did go to watch Gangom play because my dad used to live in Brittany and I lost my bank card at Gangom, so I did teach myself how to say, "Do you have my bank card?" But
I was going to say, would that be avez-vous un? I suppose it's carte du banque would be that, but
the answer was none.
None. Well, anyway, this isn't a French lesson podcast. This is a football and a nostalgic football podcast at that. And I feel like we've had 2 heavy weeks of information and some really good stories with Brendan Madden talking about Once Upon a Time in Liga, and we had Chris Lee to discuss to define and Spanish football during the Franco era and during the Spanish Civil War. So we thought, let's come back for a 3rd week. Let's get back to a bit of football nostalgia. What haven't we done for a while? It is our favourite 11. And if you can remember correctly, we have had a favourite Argentine 11. We've had a favourite Brazilian 11, Matt. Now we're moving on to the French 11. How are you feeling about this? Because I found this quite hard, actually, in hindsight.
Yeah, just before we press record, I said with the Brazil and Argentina ones, I had sort of a spine in my head straight away. And then I thought, that'd be quite a cool person to put in. And I did have to sort of debate things a bit more. I did find this one a bit more difficult. There perhaps weren't as many players that I just have this real deep love for. But yeah, my 11 in the end, they are players, as I think we said on the other 2, it's very much our favourite players rather than the greatest French players in La Liga history. So yeah, I would happily go watch this team. But I think if I had to put my money down and go and watch one of these teams at the stadium, I'd go and watch one of my Argentina 11s or Brazil 11s we did in previous episodes.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same with this. And I think if I was to put my team on a pitch to play, it would be chaos, which in itself is very French. So, it's very much in the spirit of the nation. But yeah, I found as well when I was looking at this is that in terms of French players playing in La Liga, there is a plethora of attacking talent, not too much towards the back. This is where I really struggled.
Yes, but actually, I do quite like my defence. I did just have one more look at it then. And actually, maybe the team is growing on me. So that bit at the start when I said, it's not as entertaining as the other 2, please do keep listening.
Yeah, it's got a bit of that je ne sais quoi about it, maybe, man. But we'll just keep throwing French ad-libs out there.
I do have some controversial ones in there, or controversial decisions. So
bear with. I've gone with one which was very much heart over head in terms of things. And as I think I mentioned to you, he only played 5 times in La Liga in a very short stint, but he's in there on merit. It's also worth pointing out as well, if you are not watching on YouTube, Matt has worn a very fantastic shirt for this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, it says Coupe du Monde, a dedication to the World Cup in France in 1998, one which did France win that one? No, I think they did, didn't they? Yes, yeah.
I think I was thinking about this. I think this is why I've never truly engaged with the French national team because I really wanted Ronaldo to win that World Cup. Because I always say your favorite World Cup or to you is the one closest to your 10th birthday. And that was around my 11th birthday, or maybe 12th birthday then. And no, 10th, it would be my 10th. So I've never sort of forgiven them for making Ronaldo sad. But, you know, he had quite a bad day that day all round. So it wasn't their fault.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think there's anything better maybe than a nation winning a trophy like the World Cup on home soil. That must have been a real feel-good factor. For them. And obviously they've won it since, and you know the French are pretty good at football nowadays. So you know, but we don't look at the Mbappes of this world right at this very moment in time. We're going to be looking a bit further back at some other players. So let's get into it. Let's start with the goalkeeper. I could only find two really at the top of my head here, Matt. I'd be interested to see who you've gone for. Again, mine was here for a good time, but a short time.
Okay, I think you've picked the one I considered picking. So I'll say mine because I think I know who your left field one is. Yeah, there are two goalies and like they've prominently played in Spain because I thought of this one straight away. And I thought, well, I'll check with the others. And like you said, there's not many others. So I've gone with Richard Dutreuil partly because I think I've said on here before, when I was in my teen years, I loved Barcelona. So inevitably, I would go them on Championship Manager quite a lot. And he was the Barcelona goalie. He was pretty good on Championship Manager. In reality, didn't have a great time at Barcelona. He came there from Celta, which I'll talk about in a second. But he sort of was, I think he picked up a couple of little knocks at the start and eventually he didn't have great competition either. The sort of his competition was Roberto Bonanno, who, you know, not one of the greatest Argentine goalies ever. To be honest with you, I don't even remember him being discussed in our Argentinian 11 episode. And yeah, Dutreuil at Barcelona, he sort of got usurped as the second goalie by a very young Pepe Reina. But the sort of big thing on his CV was he was the goalie for Euro Celta, that Celta Vigo team, which he sort of is a bit out of place in because that Celta team was like really fun, you know, Alexander Mostovoy, etc. And like lots of fun attacking players. But he was sort of this quite steady goalie. And there's not really, you know, there's not many stories around him, just that he was a professional goalie. He did his job. He wasn't like, he sort of stuck to his line, wasn't really running out and tackling people, not sort of like spectacular shot stopper, just a good, solid goalie. So I think he got one cap for France, maybe two, but he certainly, I know he was capped. So yeah, it's quite an unremarkable start. I'm trying to think who the other fairly prominent goalie is, but my mind's gone completely blank because I think the guy you're going to pick made his name in more dramatic circumstances elsewhere. And I'm going to take a guess you're going with an Atletico Madrid goalie.
You would be 100% correct, yes. I think the only other French goalkeeper I could think of was Areola, who probably maybe a bit more known for his time in West Ham recently. And I think he was on loan at Fulham from PSG. But I think he was at Real Madrid at one point.
Yeah, he was. He's at Villarreal and Real Madrid. But yeah, again, like I've never... Also, I don't like him because obviously being a Swansea fan, I love Lucas Fabianski. Swansea fans love Lucas Fabianski. And he sort of ousted him a bit from West Ham, and I didn't like that.
Well, he's back now. Did you see they released him during the summer and they re-signed him again?
Yeah, they love him at Swansea. He's that's for the Polish 11 one day.
One day. You are absolutely correct. I've gone with Gregory Coupe. Now, this isn't going to be based on his experiences in Spain. He was signed sort of as a backup goalkeeper. I think sort of to support. I think it was Thibaut Courtois at the moment when in this season that is in sticks for Atletico Madrid. And just after they'd lost David De Gea as well. So I'm thinking they were thinking a good pair of safe hands. But for me, it's his history that goes here. He signed for Atletico Madrid at an older age, and I think he was very much into his mid-30s, which is prime for a goalkeeper. But the fact he was a top 10 world goalkeeper at one point, you know, during his time with Lyon, over 300 150 appearances for the French club at a time when Lyon were the French club as well. And he just looked great doing it as well.
Yeah, and obviously he has a sort of link to a La Liga club because his most famous save was against Barcelona in the Champions League. So there's a link, I guess.
It is a bit of a tangent, like you say. Only plays 6 times for Atletico. So again, not an imperious time in Spanish football, but I still think it's quite fun that he came. And, you know, for a player who'd played his entire career in France, I know it's not a dramatic move to, you know, go across the border to play in La Liga, but I think it was good that he took that chance. I think he went to PSG after there, had a couple of seasons with the capital club. Help them sort of establish themselves with this new wealth they'd found after being taken over by Qatar as well. So, yeah, I just think it's quite a cool person to have between the sticks for in what is a very limited pool of French people that play net in Spain.
Yeah, we've sort of done a little bit better than we did with the Brazil 11 actually, because I think it was just Diego Lopez, wasn't it? And we didn't really have much else to go, so at least we got a bit of choice here. And yeah, just to go back to that Barcelona save, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just type into Google Gregory Coupe diving header Barcelona. Possibly my favorite save of all time. It's mad.
And he just looked great doing everything as well, because he had the sort of like the long shoulder length hair, and the kit I always find most iconic with Lyon, I most associate with, is the Umbro shirts with the Renault trucks sponsor, and he just had this massive silver kit, which was 2 sizes too big for him. And he is a giant, so I don't know who stitched it together. But yeah, he was just always, you know, similar to a lot of conversations we have around this favourite 11s, always a signing on Football Manager, on FIFA, you know, if you could do. A great pair of safe hands is where we need to put it there, and a top 10 goalkeeper in his time. So, yeah, is that enough to convince you that maybe we stick Gregory Coupe in between the sticks for our 11 as a starting for 10?
I personally, I don't think he can. So, I feel he's not La Liga enough. He's French. He's Ligue 1.
Do we need to go with quantity over quality here? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I think, okay, if he'd played 20 games and done some really cool things in those 20 games, I would go, okay, fair enough. But I feel 5 games, I can't say I've watched any of those 5 games. I don't know if he did anything, because initially he was my choice because I really like him too. I think he's brilliant. But I saw he played 5 games and I just automatically went, okay, I can't count him. So I don't know, it's your podcast. You're the boss here. So
this doesn't bode well for my other player who only played 5 games in La Liga. But more on him later.
If we're doing a La Liga 11, it has to be someone that's played at least a season in La Liga. I think Richard Dutrell he's La Liga-y.
Yeah, or do we go for the Fabianski anaesthesis, which is Areola? Do we put him as a left field pick? No. Maybe that's what Paul could have picked if he was joining us this evening.
Okay, well, but maybe we'll have to go back to it. Maybe we'll see how many choices we get each, and we can see
how it balances out. I like the idea of that. Onto the defence then, Matt. Have you gone for a back 4?
I have indeed. I've gone, just to let you know, I've gone 4-3-3, which I think is always the best for these 11s. But yeah.
See, I've gone 3-2-2-3. Which again explains the chaos in my side and the need to shoehorn some of these players in. But I'll tell you what, let's focus on your left back and your right back first, because I haven't got any of those. So one of my players could play left back.
Okay, so my right back can definitely play centre back, and probably made his name as a centre back, and is currently making his name as a right back. So I know you sort of go down the football nostalgia route. So the one I initially considered is like a La Liga legend, and certainly a Valencia legend in Jocelyn Angloma, who was part of that amazing Valencia team that did so well at the start of the early 2000s. He was pretty old, if I remember rightly. I think he was like 33, maybe even a bit older when he was sort of in that team. He's a legend. I did sort of quickly check up on him. He is currently the manager, and forgive me, I don't fully know how to say it. It's Guadeloupe. Is that how you say it? Guadeloupe?
Guadeloupe?
Yeah, Guadeloupe. I couldn't remember if it's Loop or Lope. yeah, and apparently he's been there for quite a long time. So well done him. But I haven't picked him. I've just picked a player I've just loved watching pretty much since I've lived in Spain, and it's Jules Koundé. I just think he's brilliant. Pretty much since I've lived here. So he was sort of a marauding sort of centre back at Sevilla, and he's sort of gone to Barcelona after one of those sort of strange transfers where can they register him, can they not register him? And yeah, he was obviously. I can't remember if it was the Xavi team. Yeah, it would have been the Xavi team, of course it would. He sort of struggled a bit, and there's a bit of criticism about him. But since he's sort of been under Flick, he's like sort of said now he wants to be the best right back in the world. Because at first he was sort of like, well, no, I'm a centre back, and he's a monster in regards of like how fit he is and sort of how he gets up and down the line. And obviously he's picked this sort of relationship with Lamine Yamal, which is going really well. I've read like these stories about him in Marca where like it's something like he played, I think it was 104 games in a row for club and country without a break. And when Hansi Flick gave him a break before the Copa del Rey final last season, he was out spotted running on the beach in somewhere outside Barcelona. One of I think it might have been Sitges. I can never remember to say that. Yeah, he was running, and there's like this video of him, these Americans in New York, and they're like, this guy's crazy, and this guy's sprinting down the street in the rain in New York, and it's Jules Koundé again. So he's got this sort of reputation now as being this like gym guy and being like obsessed with getting fit. But also, and you know, there's another right back in Spain which falls into this category. Now, I'm not a big fashion person, but he's sort of fallen into that sort of Hector Bellerin camp of, you know, he's got fashion designers coming to him to sort of wanting him to model their clothes and stuff because he's into fashion. And like, it's not my thing, but I always think it's really cool when footballers go into that world because it's sort of, I don't know, it's obviously things are a bit different these days, but it's perhaps seen as less of a macho-y sort of world, or traditionally was. And so, yeah, I quite like that. So yeah, and he seems a cool guy. I think he's really important in this Barcelona team. I love watching this Barcelona team at the moment. I liked it as well. He tweeted Javier Tebas. I can't remember the exact. It was something like a fixture got moved for Barcelona to a Thursday, and they were playing another game on the weekend. And he like tweeted like, you know, this is ridiculous. We're not machines, and added Tebas in it. So I quite like that. So yeah, he's just a cool guy, I think, and I love watching him play football.
I would 100% agree that he is super talented, and certainly during his time with Sevilla, he was probably the last bastion of quality at Sevilla as well for a long period of time. And you know, his moving on possibly, you know, really demonstrated their fall from grace. And I also won't have it, Matt, that you say that you're not a fashionista when you wear such a spectacular T-shirt for this podcast and say that you're not into that kind of thing. Okay, I frankly don't believe you.
If you see photos of Jules Koundé and what he's wearing, I'm not wearing those stuff, and I cannot pull that stuff off. But different strokes with different flicks.
No, the only other alternative in terms of when I was thinking about right backs, and the thing is, I didn't want my team to become too star heavy, and because he wasn't necessarily a favourite of mine, but I was thinking Lilian Thuram. In terms of in there, I thought he would be a good appointment, but I kind of settled on my back three because we just had too many good attacking players to pick from. So I've kind of sacrificed logic over creativity. Yeah, I'd be interested to see whether we got the same left back.
Yeah, just quick, when I wrote my team down, just first of all, instinct, I did write Thuram down actually, and then I changed my mind. Go on, then. Do you want to give, because you said your left back can play centre back as well, yes?
Yes, he can. So yes, and obviously,
go on.
So I've gone with Eric Abidal as my left back because I've got a different centre back. But Eric Abidal to me is obviously there's the you know his story and his diagnosis and things like that, and his work way back to football. But I also just think he was a very, very, very intelligent footballer in terms of being able to read the game, and you know within that sort of like late Rijkaard, early Pep team, I think he was quite important for stability, for being able to help transition play and stuff like that. He was just a very, very good player. And then obviously everything that happened with him afterwards and his reintroduction back into football after his diagnosis is just, it's a nice story. So I couldn't leave him out. My only other option was Ali Sissoko. So I thought it was a bit of an unfair fight.
Yeah, I've got something different.
Oh, who have you gone for?
So I did have Abidal down, and then I thought, let me have a think of the alternatives. And then this one guy came into my head, and I just loved watching him play football. Again, he is not better than Eric Abidal, but he is a bit of a cult hero at Barcelona. Did very well at Valencia. I've got Jeremy Mathieu, who was sort of in the bit between Abidal and Jordi Alba, I guess, and Barcelona signed him. I think he might have been 30, but if not close to 30, for 20 million. And it was sort of seen as a bit of like why are we spending this money on, that's not the Barcelona thing to do, is it? But I suppose they were a bit more mad at the time. But I just loved him. Also because he goes far back enough that when I used to play Pro Evo, I used to have him in my master team because he hit a good free kick and had a powerful left foot. But he was quite sort of a clumsy left back, but yeah, just powerful runner. It was just something that he looked a bit awkward. He didn't look very Barcelona-y. And obviously he got replaced by Jordi Alba, who was very Barcelona-y. But, he scored in El Clasico as well. He's hit a ball hard. Yeah, I don't know. There was just something about him. I always liked watching him. And, Abidal is a better footballer, but I just like Jeremy Mathieu. So I figured, because I thought Paul would be here as well, I figured one of you would pick Abidal. So I thought I'd go with you.
Go something a little bit different. Jeremy Mathieu never looked like a footballer either. But when you actually saw with the ball at his feet, you thought actually he's a very good footballer. Well,
do you know what he's doing now?
Well, the thing is with French footballers is they could be doing anything between working behind the bar in some Bordeaux wine establishment to being a biofuel billionaire. So it's a wide range. I don't think I even want to guess.
You're actually not too far off with the first one. I've just quickly typed in to find what the company was. Essentially, he works in a sports shop. He just runs a sports shop. I'm just trying to find where it is in France somewhere. Just quickly, I didn't write it down where it was, but yeah, he just, like a quite nice Sports Direct or something like that.
I'd love to do that.
I've just found it. He works in an Intersport store.
I'd love to do that. Just a pair of boots. Well, these are nice football boots, or the Bordeaux shirts. They're just by there. It's simple life, which I suppose when you've made your money as well, you can go and do that kind of thing. So I like Jerry Mathieu as well, and I can't see him getting in at left back over Eric Abidal, and I will embrace the 4-4. The 4-3-3 here that we're going for as well. So if I can have him as left back, I might be able to throw my one centre back into this as well. Be interesting to know who you've got at centre back, Matt. But do you want to hear mine first?
Yeah, go for it.
I've gone for Laurent Blanc.
Ooh, that's a good one.
The professor. I just always, I don't know what it is about Laurent Blanc, because again, never overly spectacular. The way that we were talking about, Jules Koundé there and the way he plays and how he operates and things like that. Laurent Blanc just looked like he turned up from the local library and decided that he wanted to have a knockabout. But I tell you what, in terms of composure and strength as well, and just being able to pluck a ball out of the air, I don't think there was many players better than him. And again, it's a bit of a sad indictment of things in terms of centre backs as far as a French perspective is concerned, because he only had one season with Barcelona, and it wasn't spectacular. I don't think he did too much, if I can remember rightly, but it's just fun. I just like Laurent Blanc for all sorts of things, and he made a bit of a career out of that, didn't he? Doing sort of like odd seasons here and there.
Yeah, like again, I think I associate him with perhaps Inter Milan a bit more, and also just from the age I am, I associate him with Manchester United. I don't know if you remember the famous joke. Do you remember the joke about Man United losing?
No, no, go on.
United went on this really bad run where Laurent Blanc was in the team, and they lost to, again, I might get the teams wrong here, or they might have drawn one, but they lost to, in no particular order, Blackburn, Liverpool, Arsenal, Newcastle, Chelsea, and they all spelt Blanc. It was something like that. I might have got some of the teams wrong, but it was something like that. And everyone was blaming him. So he became a bit of a joke, which is unfair, really, because he was great, like you said. And obviously, it was a bit of a shame. I mentioned the 98 World Cup final already. He didn't get to play in that. But obviously, he gets that iconic moment of kissing Barthez on the bald head. So.
Yeah, a very good player for France as well. I think just shy of a century of caps as a stalwart for them as well. And, obviously, quite a decent manager in most regards too. He's managed the French national team, and I know he's out in Saudi Arabia at the minute, isn't he?
We will talk about some of his views, which he expressed as French manager, though, and go on.
Yes, we won't judge him on those ones purely on the football from here. But yeah, he just thought that was a fun one to go alongside the other chap who is certainly in my view one of the most elite French centre backs, and I'm going to assume we might both have him in our teams.
From that description, yes.
Yeah, who have you gone for?
I'm guessing we're talking about Raphael Varane.
Raphael Varane, the very same. We couldn't have this without him, could we?
No, I would say, again, this feels like it's part of the Football Cliches podcast more than this, but when you hear the term, he's a Rolls Royce of a defender, he is the person that comes into my mind, because he was never flying into tackles. And also, it is like a strange story with him. I think when he goes to Madrid, he does quite a bad injury quite early. Does something to his knee, and he basically relearns how to hold himself and his posture and where he should be on the pitch. And because they say, you might not have this, might sort of hinder your career. And obviously, he does that when he's quite young, because he goes to Real Madrid, I think, when he's 18, and obviously he's there for about 14, 15 years. Yeah, he's one of the best centre-backs of my lifetime. I think he's brilliant. He's powerful. Didn't really foul much. Was in control. In Spain, they call him Don Limpio, because there's a famous cleaning brand in Spain called Don Limpio, which, for those that don't know, Limpio, sort of clean. But yeah, he's just great. And again, it's another one, going back to Laurent Blanc. I hope his time at Man United doesn't sort of, I don't think it will, but there might be this view in England, he's not very good after all. But obviously he had some pretty horrendous injuries throughout his 30s, so much so he retired early. And yeah, that Real Madrid team that wins all those Champions Leagues, with Benzema, Vinicius, Courtois, Modric, Kroos, Ramos, he's as much a part of that as anyone, I would say.
Yeah, for me, he was somebody who, probably very similar to Laurent Blanc, just got on with it as well. He wasn't, maybe this is a reiteration of what we're talking about with French players. He wasn't controversial in any step, was he? His discipline record was pretty decent for a centre-back as well. But you look at everything that he won, 17 trophies in his time with Real Madrid, starting with a La Liga title back in 2012. Even at Manchester United, was saying, we hope it doesn't taint his legacy. But he won, 2 trophies at Manchester United, at a time when they were pretty hard to come by at the time. And, he's just and a World Cup winner as well, let's not forget.
I was going to say, he played in 14 finals in his career and only lost 2.
Yeah.
And they were both for France.
Yeah. Like I say, he is an absolutely, elite player who's been in many of the, world's best 11s. He was always in sort of like the running for the Ballon d'Or, but as with, every centre-back who is nominated ends up sort of like finishing weirdly 25th to 35th and things like that. But again, just an absolutely, as you said, a Rolls Royce defender. And I think, I'm settled with him in our back four there.
Yeah.
Do we have a rival to Laurent Blanc here that we can discuss?
Yeah, but it's not. He's not. I suppose he's got more of a La Liga impact again, but on a different sort of level to Laurent Blanc, as in he's below it. This is a personal choice more than anything. And I feel like I had an honourable mention that was a bit more elite, and my mind's gone completely blank. So I'm hoping I get to that while I'm speaking. Basically, the first goal I ever saw scored live in La Liga was in a Barcelona 5, Valladolid 0 game, and it was scored in the first minute by Clément Lenglet. And I've always really liked him because, and it was a hell of a goal as well. It was like a cross in the box, and he sort of smashed it on the volley into the bar, and it sort of bounced off the bar and went in. It was really great goal. But yeah, he was like at Sevilla, he was awesome. He was really good, and I think people sort of forget how good he was at Sevilla. I know I didn't watch Sevilla week in, week out, but I definitely remember watching some sort of, I was going to say Champions League game, but it might well have been the Europa League game, in Sevilla. And I was like, wow, that guy's amazing. And I sort of always watched him when I did watch Sevilla, and I always liked the look of him. And Barcelona did buy him as sort of, the long-term sort of replacement for like Carlos Puyol as sort of the guy that was going to be next to Piqué. And, he had his moments at Barcelona. I think he started quite well, but then I think the writing on the wall for him came with the 8-2 game against Bayern. I think he was quite, he wasn't the only one in that game, but he was a bit all over the shop. Tell you what, I've just remembered the other guy I was going to mention, and it's not, I would say, as good a defender as everyone we've mentioned so far. He sort of replaced Lenglet. I thought Lenglet, sorry, but he had a bad injury that sort of finished him. Samuel Umtiti was the other one I considered because he was elite. But
sadly, he ended up going out to Lecce in Italy, didn't he? I think he's just been released from there, and he's struggling to find a new club. So I think he's really struggled since he's left Barcelona. But I completely agree with you. On his day, he was up there, and same with Lenglet as well. He's time with Barcelona. Again, it's in that era of Real Madrid dominance post Pep, isn't it? So it was always going to be difficult to be a Barcelona player at that time. But in terms of his longevity with La Liga, I suppose he has that over. there is a good put in there somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah, I was going for it. I backed out.
Definitely played more football than Laurent Blanc, so I'm maybe going with a bit of style over substance here. I'm quite happy to keep Blanc in, but I also have Varane in. So if you want to have Lenglet in,
I feel like, again, it's just sort of with me. I don't really know so much about Blanc's time at Barcelona. I remember him being there. I can picture him in the shirt. So I'm happy to keep Blanc in there. It seems a bit, I don't know, it seems a bit weird picking Lenglet over Blanc for some reason. But I do like him a lot.
Yeah, can't be done. Well, we have got through our defence anyway. We're still ambiguous about our goalkeeping choice. This might come down to a three-party vote on this one. But in terms of the back line, we've gone for Jules Koundé at right back. We've got Eric Abidal at left back, Laurent Blanc in the centre, partnering Raphael Varane, which I think is a very solid. As far as a French defence, I think that's quite nice.
I feel a little bit sorry for Jules Koundé at the moment because I think he's the only one that's not won a World Cup in there.
Well, he's got time, hasn't he?
Anyway,
be interesting to see. I don't think he has actually. No, he wouldn't, because he would have missed the first one, and he would have missed it. He would have played maybe in the final in 2006.
I've just googled him. 2006 runner-up. That's it. So yeah.
Oh, come on, Eric. You need to step up there. Let's move on to our midfield then, because I think this is where it's going to get a bit bonkers. I've gone for a double pivot here in my 2-2 midfield formation. I know you've gone for a 3. Is it an attacking 3 or is it a defensive 3?
I would say there's a 6, an 8, and a sort of 10 in there. So I'd say it's quite balanced. My 10 is coming off the left of the midfield if I had to put him anywhere.
Ooh, so yeah, it's the same person here. Well, I've gone for a double pivot of, and I'm going to name both of them at the same time because I just think this will be imperious. I've gone with a double pivot of Claude Makélélé, but Celta Vigo Claude Makélélé, and Jeremy Toulalan of Malaga as my double pivot.
Wow, because I'm just there's somebody mentioned earlier, and we'll get to it, and I was like, I completely forgot about him. I sort of forgot about Jeremy Toulalan, weirdly, considering I'm a Malaga fan, all my Malaga time. So go on, you can. I will tell you now, I've also picked Claude Makelele. He's my 6.
Yeah, I again, I don't think anyone would turn down Claude Makelele from this side. And like I said, I've gone for a Celta Vigo era because not that it made him, but it put him on a La Liga stage. He was, identified as one of the finest midfielders in La Liga at his time there. Also part of that famous Euro Celta side, which I think is just fun. Again, I'm envisaging him in that Umbro kit with the Citreon logo. I've got a thing for Umbro kits and automobile sponsors this evening. So, yeah, that might be my thing now. And obviously, when anyone is good enough to have a role named after him, Matt, then we can't ignore him, can we?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was going to think about this in work today, and I've only just remembered about it. I was trying to think of who in football has things named after them, and obviously there's the Panenka, the Cruyff turn, and the Makelele role. And I thought there must be some others, but I haven't had enough time to think about it. So answers on a postcard if you can think of any other moves or positions in football named after you. There must be some. There must be some South American playmaker that's got a position named after him or something. But yeah, he is. I always say he's like one of football's sort of great paradoxes, isn't he? Because he is sort of the most underrated rated player ever and sort of the most overrated underrated player ever, if that makes sense. It's like it's like everyone sort of says, oh, he's so underrated, but again, he's not, is he? Because everyone says that and everyone recognizes that he's certainly in our lifetime like the defensive midfielder. And it's funny as well, just the thing I think that gets a bit lost with him is obviously there's the famous Zidane quote of why put another layer of gold paint on the Bentley when you're losing the entire engine, which he said about Makelele going. But like it wasn't like Florentino Perez just went, yeah, we need another Galactico, off he goes. Makelele did sort of go, okay, I want to stay here. You want me to stay here. Those Galactico fellas are on like 5 times more than me. I want to get a bit closer to them. And he was like, nope. And obviously, Chelsea had, their financial muscle at the time and flaunted it and took him. And, Jose Mourinho had a lovely time with him. But he is, like you said, he's got a position named after him. I think even some of the students I teach in school will know Claude Makelele because of that phrase. And and I'll actually, if we were doing a French Premier League 11, he would be in with a good shout next to Patrick Vieira. He was that good. And like you said, in that Celta team, he pretty much had his pick of Europe. We could have gone to Serie A. I think Arsenal, Man United were looking at him. I think Valencia supposedly had the deal done and Real Madrid came in and took him. But just amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as well, I enjoy about him at, especially at Real Madrid, I could not find you a photo of Claude Makelele at Real Madrid where he's not smiling. He's got maybe a bit of that N'Golo Kante effect where he's just like, I can't believe I'm here. This is brilliant. But he was, as you said, a fantastic, brilliant footballer and really redefined what it was to be a defensive midfielder at the time. And we looked at these little nuances of where football evolves. And like you say, you can really pin it on all the players that followed him that tried to fit into that mold. So, we couldn't have this team without Claude Makelele in it. Toulalan is an interesting one. I've picked Toulalan as for personal reasons as well, Matt. We're both Malaga fans. I really enjoyed watching Jeremy Toulalan play for Malaga in the Champions League, but I loved him before that when he was with Lyon. Again, part of that famous Lyon side during the noughties, which was trying to conquer Europe. I don't actually think they ever got as far as I think they got. In my brain, I see them reaching Champions League finals. I don't think they were ever that far into it, but they had, Gregory Coupe, they had Christopher Revier, they've got Chris, the Brazilian named Chris.
Janino.
Janino, Florent Malouda, they've had a young Karim Benzema, Sidney Govou, people like that. So he's very much in that stable for me as just a classic, brilliant French midfielder.
Yeah, he's great. And just to, I've been a Malaga fan. I've lived here. This is 6 years now, so I missed all that stuff. But obviously, I've seen enough of that Malaga team, the Champions League team, which he was very much a part of. And I can say that if you do go to some of the bars around La Rosaleda, and obviously, you see Malaga scarves, you do see quite a lot of Tulalan scarves, like purely just him on here. And so he is like a big hero down in Malaga. And yeah, he's a bit of an icon of that Malaga Champions League team. Yeah, great player. And again, like you, I sort of grew up in that era where ITV had Champions League football, and yeah, Lyon were a big part of that. So that team is quite dear to a lot of people our age because they were fun.
Yeah, they really, really were. And just at the mere mention of the word Juninho, that free kicks and shots from distance was just spectacular. Speaking of eights, who have you gone for?
This is one of my favourite choices, I think, because I think it's a bit left field, but it shouldn't be. It's a player I saw play against Swansea in the Premier League a couple of times, and a player that was a fucking nuisance, to be honest with you. It was really tough to play against, especially the teams he played for. And I did not envisage him going to Spain and becoming what he did. I've got Stephen Nzonzi.
You know what? I like that. He's back training with Sevilla at the minute, if I remember rightly. But
I think he's signed for them. I think he's actually...
Has he?
Oh, no, sorry. He's gone to Stoke. He re-signed for Stoke. I knew he'd re-signed for someone.
Oh, but you're right. I never saw... So I remember first seeing Stephen Nzonzi at Blackburn Rovers. And, my proximity to Blackburn meant I used to go and watch a few Blackburn games. And I never foresaw him not only going on to play in La Liga at a spectacular level, winning Europa Leagues, and I think he's a World Cup winner. I think he was a 2018 World Cup squad member. But even that, after he's left, Sevilla, and he's gone to have a great career in Italy and things like that, he just accelerated himself. He decided one day and went, actually, I'm going to be a world-class footballer. And he did.
And also, you definitely didn't foresee him winning the 2024 Iranian Super Cup.
I did not see that. No, I didn't know that he'd ended up out in Iran.
That's where he's just been. And like I said, I saw him. I remember one of Swansea's early games in the first season in the Premier League was against Steve Keane's Blackburn, and we lost 4-2. Yakubu scored all 4 goals, and he was a nuisance. And then I used, like everyone does, it's a bit of a cliche. Hated going to Stoke away, but I always ended up going because I lived in Manchester and it was quite easy to get to. And yeah, he was just always tough. And obviously Swansea, we were this sort of, Swanzalona, tiki-taka, it was a bit more than that. So they were sort of like our nemesis, Stoke, and they just always used to beat us. And yeah, he became this like he was always a bit of a slogger, and he played for Allardyce and Pulis. But he went to Sevilla and he became something else. He became this number 8. So sort of in a weird way, almost like Gerrard-esque, sort of up and down. And he was, I think, forgive me, I can't remember. I did look at it yesterday when I was choosing him. He was in La Liga team of the season 2017. And I think he's next to Modric in that team. And it's, it's Messi and Ronaldo. And I think it was Iago Aspas was the other forward. Yeah, like you said, he wins the Europa League. He plays for Sevilla, so of course he wins the Europa League. He goes to Roma after, and I meant to check this. I'm assuming he goes to Roma because Monchi goes to Roma, and I'm guessing Monchi may have taken him with him to show how highly rated he is. And it was just a fun. And again, it was one of those things where obviously I had my big Premier League hat on at the time. I was when he went to Sevilla, so I perhaps wasn't watching as much as La Liga then, and then you're hearing these murmurs of Stephen Nzonzi's tearing it up in Seville. You're like, is he? And then you sort of start checking it out, and you're and you see footage of him, and also going from Allardyce and Pulis. I think he signed for Unai Emery when he was at Sevilla, but the guy that really got him firing was Jorge Sampaoli, and that is a man that's a very different philosophy to Allardyce and Tony Pulis. So yeah, it's just brilliant. And yeah, like I said, he has gone back to Stoke now. So I'm not a big Stoke fan, but I hope it it all works out for him. And and also, I only saw this one. I just read this yesterday that like when he went to Seville in his first month there, he got salmonella and got sent off in his first game. So he didn't have a good start either. So yeah, really up against it, and it worked out.
Yeah, the full Woodgate is what I think what we can refer that to. But I completely agree with that, and he is always someone that that you look on fondly for his time in Spain too, and beyond that as well. And it's just that novelty of I've watched him at Ewood Park play against Hull, and he turned out to be a World Cup winner. It's always interesting to see that. I'm gonna put he might. It might be a straight up fight here between Toulalan and Zonzi for that spot, because I think we're both going for the same number 10.
Okay. Am I saying it?
Go on. Yeah, you've got to say it.
Okay, so I've picked Robert Pires.
Then we're not going for the same number 10.
Oh, okay. So
Perhaps
I misled you by saying number 10. Because, okay, first of all, let's get the controversial thing out of the way. I've not chosen Zidane. Partly not because the three midfielders I've picked, Zidane's probably better. But I've spent all these years saying I've never fully got Zidane. Obviously, really? I've seen, like, when he plays well, the guy's a genius. And, watch a YouTube video and he's brilliant. But I think, like I've always said, that sort of Galacticos era of Real Madrid was probably when I was watching La Liga the most before now. And I just didn't think he was that great. He was like when he does things, when he's on it, he's a genius. Like, he is one of the most gifted footballers, and I do quite like him. I quite like his temperament, and like when he was Real Madrid manager, I hate Real Madrid, but I quite liked him. Apart from his bit towards the end when he was a bit rude to Gareth Bale. But yeah, I picked Robert Pires because, again, I know you guys have mentioned it a few times on your podcast. That Villarreal team of the mid-2000s is just, it's a fun place to go all the time. And I quite like the story of him going from Arsenal to Villarreal at age 33. And I think he does his ligaments in in pre-season. So it's like, oh, well, that's not worked out. But they love him at Villarreal.
They do.
Seasons, he takes them, obviously he sort of replaces Riquelme in a way as well, which obviously very different sort of players, and Pires is slightly more out wide, but he takes on that sort of playmaking, responsibility, and has a brilliant time of it. And he sort of as well, I quite like it. Like, I remember at the time when Villarreal played Arsenal in the quarterfinals, he was sort of like, I'm going to show Wenger that he got rid of me too soon and stuff. And and obviously him and Wenger have a very good relationship from what I gather still. But I just think he's, I loved him in the Premier League. He's sort of, because, when he was in the Premier League, it was still quite typical. You play 4-4-2, don't you? And he was out on the left, and he wasn't your typical winger. And I think the word that always comes up with Robert Pires is flat-footed in a good way. Like, he sort of can never tell where he's going to go. And I just think it was really cool. Like, he goes there 33 as a sort of final swan song, has this injury, and it's like, oh, well, done. And then comes back and he plays 4 years there and is really good. To be honest with you, in my head, I was like, oh, yeah, he retired there. And I forgot he went to Aston Villa. Like,
he did, yeah. It was under Houllier, wasn't it, if I remember rightly?
Yeah, I've got this image in my head. I thought, oh, yeah, he scored that really good lobbed goal, but I think that might have been against Aston Villa. It might have been against Schmeichel, actually, when I thought about it after. But, yeah, and that Villarreal team he's part of, they do finish second in the league. It's a brilliant team with, like, Capdevila, Sandy Cazorla still in that team, Marcus Senna. I think Nihat's up front, and I think it was either Forlan or Rossi, but I think it might have been Rossi. I think Forlan might have gone to Atletico by then. I just really like Robert Pires, and apologies to the Zidane fans out there. It's nothing. I don't dislike him. I can't. I would have felt a hypocrite after my not crusade against him. I don't know what it is. Anyway.
See, I have got Zidane in there purely because, I do echo everything that you said about Zidane. maybe this is a bit of a theme with these French players, is that they are kind of like the most overrated and underrated and underrated and overrated, because I think in a Galacticos era, he was quite clearly one of the top Galacticos in a technical sense. But in terms of like his pizzazz, apart from appearing on the back of Vespers and being in that, I think it was the Portugal 2004 Euros advert where they're all heading towards Portugal on scooters. He didn't really do too much apart from just being Adidas adverts. But, you know, you just got to take those moments of magic, you know, that goal in the 2001 Champions League final, you know, those pullbacks that he would do, or he would just stick out a leg and just, you know, make the ball disappear basically from view. He was technically absolutely brilliant. He's definitely better than the other chap who I've picked to go alongside him, who I think I'm definitely going to sacrifice after hearing you bring up Robert Perez.
I've got to say as well, like, obviously, I think Zidane is, as far as I'm aware, the only player in like recent years, in football history off the top of my head, where they've literally just made a film following him for 90 minutes with a Mogwai soundtrack. He is a perfect player to do that, because just the way he holds himself. And like, I've watched that film, I've watched all 90 plus minutes of it, and it's against Villarreal. I can't remember what Villarreal team it is, but I remember it's Villarreal. And he doesn't have like a barnstorming game, but he is fascinating to watch for the 90 minutes, because he does just sort of stroll around a lot, and it's raining, and he sort of just looks a bit sulky, but not like sulky, well, just a bit like unfazed by everything, I guess. So yeah, like, I think he is one of the greatest players of our lifetime. But and obviously we like players to be a bit, you know, I've said on a few of these podcasts, they're inconsistent, but they have these moments. And I love that. But I think with him, because he's so venerated and celebrated, I'm like, it's sort of like, all right, he needs to be to a higher level for me. He needs to be more consistent. But yeah, you know, he should be in this team. I'm not that silly. I sort of just put him in there as a bit of a curveball again.
Well, like I say, I'm happy to sacrifice my next choice, because this is the chap who only played 5 games in a 6-month period.
I know who you're picking now.
Who are you going to go? Who do you think I'm picking?
Well, only because I saw. Is this someone you tweeted the other day?
It is someone I tweeted the other day.
I will say, before you say who this person is, I have zero recollection of this. I usually remember these mad transfers, and he wears a mad number. Until I saw your tweet the other day, I was like, when did that happen? So go on.
It is the one and only Hatem Ben Arfa, who signed for Real Valladolid back in, I'm going to say it was 2018. I've probably got that wrong.
I have no idea.
Yeah, signed on a 6-month deal with Real Valladolid. Wore the number 3 because he said it looked nice on the shirt, and played 5 games, and that was it. So I think if Gregory Coupe isn't going to get the La Liga treatment, I'm not too sure I could put Hatem Ben Arfa in there. But when he was at his peak, you know, they called him l'enfant terrible, and you know, the terrible child, the terror child, because he was just so petulant and moody at times. But when he was on song, he was brilliant.
Yeah, again, I love him, and he's another one that sort of was perhaps in the second generation of that successful Lyon generation. And yeah, I guess, you know, obviously we had him in the Premier League at Newcastle, and he was amazing for that sort of 9 months or so, maybe even less. And obviously, again, he falls out with people. There is an amazing documentary, which I don't think I've ever watched all of it, but it's in French, but I think I've seen it in subtitles, which is all about Clairefontaine. And he just comes across as an absolute dickhead. I remember that. But again, like, you sort of, when you watch him play, you're like, oh yeah, you can be a dickhead.
Yeah. Yeah, I can wax lyrical about his solo goals for Newcastle United, even some of the magic he brought to Hull City at one point, but I couldn't tell you anything about his time at Real Valladolid. And
also,
really couldn't.
When you did your episode a couple of weeks ago with Brendan, I remember he mentioned that Majico Gonzalez is out of place in a city like Valladolid. And I've been to Valladolid, and it is a very sort of, you know, it's sort of famous for having the most clear Spanish accent, and it's proper Spanish, and it's a very, I don't know, quite majestic sort of royal city, and quite orderly, and he's not. He shouldn't be there. Hatton Ben Arthur.
No, he should
He should
not
have got
be.
the Cadiz. He would have been perfect at Cadiz.
It's still time. It's still time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's recently retired, but there's still time. You never know. Midfield wise, then I think because we've gone 4 at the back, we're going to have to go 3 in midfield, unless you want to go 2 up top.
Well, what should we see the who we've got up top, and then maybe evaluate at the end, maybe.
Let's do it. And I think in the swing of the previous 2 times, because up top is quite a conscientious part of the podcast, I'm going to name all 3 players I've got playing up front at the minute. If you want to name your 3 as well, I have gone for Thierry Henry on the left, Barcelona Thierry Henry, of course. I've gone for Ludovic Gulli on the right, and I bet you're thinking where I'm going for the middle here, Matt. Clear and obvious. Nobody else. David Trezeguet, Hercules.
Wow, I did not see that coming. And to be honest with you, he didn't even cross my mind as much as I loved that season at Hercules. Okay, I will say, in case anyone's watching on the video, at the start you mentioned Kylian Mbappe. I just completely forgot about him. But I don't think I would have picked him anyway. But I was like, how did I even sort of have the conversation in my head? So on the right,
he's barely been in La Liga. He's not played as many games as Gregory Coupe.
Yeah. So on the right, I also have Ludovic Gulli. Down the middle, I just think he deserved his Ballon d'Or over recent years. I didn't used to like him, but he's just a brilliant footballer. Karim Benzema, and of course, one of my favorite footballers of all time was the first name on the team sheet, and that's Antoine Griezmann on the left.
Yeah, he was one that that when I was scribbling my team on the back of an open envelope, I put Griezmann to begin with, and I went, no, that's no fun. I'm going to have Hatton Ben Arthur instead. And now I feel foolish, Matt. I feel a bit foolish, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I suppose we could push him back if we need to. But yeah, so why Ludovic Gulli then, since we've both got him?
I think with Ludovic Gulli, especially during his time with Monaco, when he came to sort of like my presence, he was, really, really cool to watch. Played with a bit of guile. He wasn't your traditional winger as well. He was, very lightweight. He was very close ball to feet, technique wise. And when he went to Barcelona, I think he's possibly one of the more underrated players to play for Barcelona in terms of what he brought to the team. Everyone will remember Ronaldinho, Thierry Henry, Samuel Eto'o, etc. But what he did in that side was actually very, very important to their success. So I just always think he goes under the radar. And he's just got a brilliant name. Ludovic is a cracking name. Like, if I have a son ever, I might call him Ludovic.
Yeah, and again, going back to the ITV era of Champions League football, that Monaco team is really sort of etched into my head because it was him and Jérôme Rotten on the left wing. They were my favorite players in the team, probably. And yeah, like you said, I think he is generally one of the most underrated footballers in that sort of pre-Pep Guardiola Barcelona, because everyone remembers Deco, Ronaldinho, Eto'o, like you said. But I think he's really because he was quite he's a bit of a throwback, actually, because he was a proper winger. He didn't really, he wasn't really tricky. He's very short. So he had this low center of gravity, but he'd sort of just run at people and try and go past them, and he could cross a ball and, or he could, set someone up. He scored quite a lot of goals, actually. I did sort of look at his numbers yesterday, and he scored a bit more than I remember.
What more do you think? Yeah, definitely.
But also he is sort of that bridge, I think, between, because obviously Pep Guardiola, axes Ronaldinho, Deco, sort of tries to get rid of Eto'o. But Ludovic Gulli is sort of the crossover between that right guard team and Guardiola. I don't think he ever plays for Guardiola, but it's he passes on the baton to this kid Leo Messi, because and fair play. From what I gather, he sort of recognized that, okay, time's up here. This kid's and sort of takes it quite graciously and doesn't sort of cause up a fuss, because he starts in that Champions League final. They beat Arsenal. I think he scores the only goal in the semi-final against AC Milan. So he plays a big part there. And yeah, I just always really liked him, like you said. And also, I will say, I'm generally going to think about this a bit more. I know I've told you before that I was very lucky in, I'm going to say 2005, but I might have the year wrong. On whatever summer they signed Samuel Eto'o, so it might have been a bit before actually. I was very lucky to see Barcelona play Parma in a friendly in the Millennium Stadium, because I remember Samuel Eto'o had signed a couple of days before, and he didn't play. He just did laps of the Millennium Stadium for like a half. But Ludovic Juli played, and I think to this day he must be the shortest player I've seen live. I cannot think of anyone as he's so short. I couldn't believe it.
You must have seen Michael Misford in your time watching Swansea. He was a Maltese pocket rocket.
Yeah, I think I have seen him play, but I think Ludovic Juli's shorter. That's a good shout. He must be he must be competing. That was it. Sorry, I did sort of, when I did a bit of Google of Ludovic Juli, before we mentioned the others, I stumbled across a Panenka article about him. I just thought I'd read this because I thought it was quite pretty. So obviously it's translated into English, so it might not fully work. But it's by Marcel Beltran, and he says, Ludovic Juli retired 10 years ago, but when I think about him, I imagine him still running somewhere, whether trying to catch the bus, make sure the elevator didn't run out, or get the potatoes out of the pan before they burned. There are people who evoke movement. You only manage to remember them doing things, running the lawnmower, moving a painting, taking out the trash, in action, as if they'd never stood still. Juli was a winger, and for wingers, life is like playing tag. But seriously, if you don't get caught, you become a millionaire. Watching him flee from a defender was a spectacle. Tiny, rambunctious, he looked like one of those insects that sprints to safety when someone lifts the rock they were hiding under. He had the dimensions of a child, but the face of a seasoned man. The classic French symbolist painter who lived in Tangier for a few years, smoked dark tobacco, and adored the poems of Baudelaire. I thought that was quite nice. Finally, last thing, he has a stadium named after him.
Oh, wow, that absolutely nails it for me. Then he kind of described him like an Anthony Bourdain of football there, which I quite liked as well.
His Fonts d'Or Azigues Font, apologies, or Foot. Their stadium is Stade Ludovic Juli.
Nice. Well, like I say, you know you're good when you have an estadio named after you. So I think he's definitely nailed on for our right wing there, because we both picked him. That's we're a democracy here. The rest of the world might be falling apart, but on this podcast, all is fair. I'm going to go to left mid at the minute because I think I might. It's going to take a lot for me to concede Thierry Henry over Antoine Griezmann, but. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I think obviously Henry is going to be a lot more synonymous with Arsenal. I think we can all agree on that. And his time at Barcelona was an opportunity for him to go and do something different. I think the good thing about Henry in this Barcelona side is the sacrifice he makes to not be the number one striker, to go out onto the left wing and become part of a team rather than be the icon like was at Arsenal. But... and I'm definitely going to hear your argument here for Antoine Griezmann. He is just spectacular, isn't he? The little man from he started out at Real Sociedad as well. Obviously, we would make him synonymous with Atleti now, but he did start up in the Basque Country.
He did indeed, yeah. And to be honest with you, Henry, he was a toss-up between Juli and Henry, and I just decided I preferred Juli at Barcelona to Henry because of what you said, really, where I have a lot of respect for Thierry Henry at Barcelona, and like he's integral in launching them as the Pep team, and like you said, he sacrificed it. But for my front line, I don't want people sacrificing. I want people to have fun. And Antoine Griezmann is about as fun a footballer as I've seen. Like he's one of those ones as well. It's quite hard to, if you were to say what's Antoine Griezmann good at. It's hard to answer. He's sort of just good at everything. He's even like not the biggest guy. He scores quite a lot of good headers as well. For me, it was in the 2022 World Cup. He was the best player in that World Cup, and he played as an offensive midfielder, which again is not the most fun thing for your attacker, but he's so good and so intelligent. He's probably, because for me, I get a bit annoyed about, because I don't dislike him, but everyone talks about like Thomas Muller and it's the Raumdeuter, I think is what they call him, like which sort of translates as the space finder. And I think Antoine Griezmann's just better at him than that. he is the top goal scorer in the history of Atletico Madrid. He's the 11th top goal scorer in La Liga history. And, there's big names ahead of him, and he's not really an out-and-out striker. He's the best player. He's third in the Ballon d'Or in like the mid-2010s behind Messi and Ronaldo. He sort of single-handedly takes France to the 2016 Euro final, but, that's a bit of a freak final. Brilliant in 2018 World Cup. And this is all like being amazing for Atletico. And he did try to do, you said about Henry sacrificing. He did try to do that at Barcelona and sort of went, fuck it, this is not working and this is not fun. I want to go back and beat the man, and sort of respect that. And yeah, I just I think I've said before, I can't remember which podcast on, that I do quite like players that just seem to enjoy being a footballer and don't take it too seriously. So he got like a lot of shit. I remember do you remember when he was at Barcelona and he did the LeBron James thing with the confetti, and it's a bit sort of, camp and silly, but on all his dancing, but I quite like that. And he did do one of the greatest celebrations in La Liga history when he scored for Real Sociedad, and he jumped the fence and got in the sponsorship car behind the goal and started beeping the horn, pretending to drive. Yeah, he's just, when I see him play, he's just fun, and he's really good as well. I think he's one of my favorite footballers of all time. So, I just love watching him play. And I was very lucky a few months ago to see him play at La Rosaleda for Atletico Madrid against Marbella. So he scored the winner. He was very good, admittedly against a 4th division team, but still very good.
Yeah, he is. And I think, his fondness in Spain is something that goes well for him, because again, there are a lot of people that would be tribal about footballers and players and things like that, but I think a lot of fans from a lot of different teams really appreciate Griezmann for who he is and how he plays. Very versatile as well. You've just described in that conversation then 4 different positions that you can play, and you don't get many footballers that are that versatile that actually manage to hold on to a starting spot as well. Versatility tends to be the killer, isn't it? If you can play multiple positions, you sort of get picked second. So I think for him to have such a long career in La Liga as well is just great.
Just the final thing, I'll put a black mark against his name. The only black mark against his career is that absolutely absurd, mad documentary he did about whether he should move to Barcelona or not. And he said, I'm staying at Atletico, and then moved the next summer. It's just, he looked a dick in that. That's the only time I thought, this is stupid.
That whole move for him going to Barcelona and it not working out, and then obviously Suarez coming the other way and it really working out, and the Ronald Koeman part of it is just it wasn't the right fit for him, was it? I
do actually have in my drawer a Barcelona shirt with Griezmann 17 on the back. I should have brought it along.
Well, I will definitely take that argument for Griezmann over Henry there. It's a tough argument, but I will agree on that one. I may not agree with you on David Trezeguet over multiple trophy winning, 25 trophies in a 10-year period for Real Madrid. King Karim over David Trezeguet, who played 1 season in La Liga with Hercules, but moved to Alicante for love, Matt. You can't say better. It's all for love.
Yeah, great. It's I don't know what to say about David Trezeguet in Alicante. I think I'm not a big lover of Alicante in general, but I do like Hercules though. I think I've said to you it's on my bucket list to visit that stadium this season. I've walked past it many times and not been able to go to a game there. So shout out to David Trezeguet visiting that stadium. Yeah, it's a cool story, isn't it? And I do remember Hercules in that season. And I think, David Trezeguet's obviously got Argentinian links as well. And he went to River Plate, I think, after or maybe before. I can't remember which way around.
Yeah.
So I quite like that about him. And I like David Trezeguet. But he's, Karim Benzema is Karim Benzema.
He's a bit good at football as Karim Benzema, isn't he? But I think the only 2 things that go against him is that weird period where he didn't play for France, so basically removed himself from selection, and also he's very arrogant. Like I say, David Trezeguet moved to Spain for love. Karim Benzema wouldn't do such things.
Yeah, to be honest with you, like he was a bit of a player. I think I've said on here before, I don't like Real Madrid, and I've always found him a player very hard to like. Certainly in that sort of period with Ronaldo and like when they were just winning things, and I think in like Spain there was a bit, especially when he first moved to Spain, where he was called the new Anelka, but not in a complimentary way, as a bit of a sulk. And he didn't start great at Real Madrid, and I think Jose Mourinho sort of said he needs to wise up, and I think some people said he needed to lose weight. But I would say probably post Ronaldo, because obviously he was great when Ronaldo was there, and I know Ronaldo sort of praises him for he created quite a lot of goals for him. But when Ronaldo went, I just loved watching him play football. Then he reminded me a little bit, and I do mean a little bit here, like. He did remind me of R9 Ronaldo a bit, like especially when he had the ball at his feet and he'd run at people, and he scored every type of goal. He not quite as like the rapid Ronaldo when he was at Barcelona in '97, but yeah, he was just brilliant. And again, like I don't like Real Madrid, but for me in that Real Madrid team that kept having those mad comebacks, you just thought, well, he'll get a goal. And like one of my favorite goals he scored, because like some of his volleys are just immense. There's this one for Osasuna, and I think Ronaldo sets him up, and it's almost like the Van Basten goal. It's such a tight angle. He hits it so hard. But I love his goal against Chelsea, the header in the Champions League. I can't remember if quarterfinal, semi-final. I lose track of which comeback's which. And he like rockets the header from like 18, near the edge of the box. And I think it's either the equalizer or the winner. It's just... Yeah, in the last few years, I really, like when he was up for the Ballon d'Or, I was actually really vouching for him because I enjoyed watching him so much. He does also, I didn't know this till I did have a quick look at his Wikipedia page just to look at his numbers. Do you know he has a Guinness World Record?
I did not know he has a Guinness World Record.
He has, and again, this might not be up to date, but it sounds legit to me, the most consecutive seasons playing in the Champions League. From 2005 to 2023.
I was going to say that would not surprise me because again we have spoke a lot about that Naughty's Lyon side tonight, and he was a big part of that. And when he moved to Real Madrid, I think this is going to sound strange, but obviously I was at an age where I was in high school, so in this schoolyard you're like, yeah, Benzema's going to Madrid, he's going to tear it up in Madrid and things like that, and he did. He was a 1-in-2 man. He played. Just over 430 games, scored 230 odd goals. Class.
I think the one statistic to finish on here, and you can add what you want, is it's quite an obvious statistic, but he is the 4th top goal scorer in La Liga history. It's like so he's not only the highest Frenchman. Griezmann's the 2nd, by the way. Griezmann's not that far behind, but it's Messi, Ronaldo, and the legendary Zara, and then Karim Benzema. So, wow.
Can't say no to that. Well, maybe there's room here for compromise, Matt, because I will read out the notes that I've just put down here in terms of, we said we were going to look at the squad and see what we could build. I've gone Mike Bassett. I've gone 4-4-2.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Goalkeeper is kind of up for debate still. We'll see. We'll see what Paul says about that one. We've got a back four of Jules Koundé, Laurent Blanc, Raphael Varane, and Eric Abidal.
Yeah, happy with that.
I'm going to suggest a midfield duo that has Claude Makelele in it, and Steven and Onze.
Okay.
In terms of over to Lalonde.
Okay. I thought we were going to say something.
Out on the right, I'm going to go for Ludovic Julie.
Yeah.
Out on the left, I'm going for Antoine Griezmann.
Okay.
And then up top, I'm going for Karim Benzema and David Trezeguet in Ercole.
Crazy. I thought you were going to go. I thought Nzonzi would go for Zidane and Perez left. And then, I thought it would be Benzema and Griezmann up front. Okay. It's your podcast. I think the Dutrell Coupe thing is just mad. I can't see that one at all. David Trezeguet is mad as well, but
in my serious notes here, I do have Zidane alongside Claude Makelele instead of Steven Nzonzi. I do like the idea of having Nzonzi in there, but I just can't see Zidane not being in this team.
I agree.
I haven't got anyone for left mid. I have been sold on Griezmann up top alongside Karim Benzema as well. So if we want to put, I don't think Henry was a left mid. So if we want to put Robert Perez out there, we can do, or Hatem Ben Arfa if we fancy going for a really rogue left field.
I'll leave it up to you. I suppose we could sort of shift Henry. I'll leave you decide between Perez and Henry. I'm happy for either there.
Oh, it's like Sophie's choice. We'll ask Paul. We'll get Paul to rule on that one and see if he takes our arguments.
What does he think?
Absolutely. We'll get the final team out on socials and everyone can have a
One more thing, very, very quickly. I did want to pick a manager because there's a guy I really like. I'll be very quick. I've picked as my manager because, again, there's not many. Reinald Deneux, who was the Real Sociedad manager when they almost won the league in the early 2000s, with Nihat and Darko Kovacevic up front, and Xabi Alonso, of course. That's one of my favorites. I love that team more than mid-2000 Villarreal. So he was a French guy, so I think I wanted to pick him. He's also the guy that discovered Didier Deschamps and Marcel Desailly. So he had Didier Deschamps. We didn't talk about him. He played for Valencia. And also has a stadium named after him somewhere, but I forgot where.
No, anyway. Absolutely. Like I say, that is a commendable managerial pick because I don't think I can name off the top of my head any other French managers that have played or managed in Spain.
There's not. I think there's only 2 or 3 successful.
Yeah, they don't tend to cross the Pyrenees, did they, too much? But I think we've managed to get a pretty decent 11 there, without mentioning Jeffrey Kondogbia either. Just as a random other French player, just to throw in there for a bit about, or Thomas Lemar for Atleti too. So.
My left field one, and it was a bit of a cheat. I was going to throw in Freddie Canute, but he played for Mali, but he was born in France, and he's a legend in Seville. But I thought that's cheating.
That would have been a good one. Or Kevin Gramero as well. He would have been a good choice.
Was a good place to go for this.
Yeah, Nabil Fekir as well at Real Betis. I do enjoy him too. But we could do this all day. We'll get the final team out once Paul's cast his votes on those positions out on social media. You could have a little judge. And as we say, it is our favourite French 11. Not the best French 11. It is our favourite French 11. But yeah. Matt, merci beaucoup for joining me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure once again.
No problem. Enjoyed it as always. I look forward to whatever national 11 you throw my way next time.
Yeah, we'll have to start thinking about some really rogue ones after this France one. Any exciting things happening on Los Boyos soon?
So by the time you listen to this, I guess a new episode will be out. We had Joey Dursey on our podcast, who, for those that don't know, wrote a book, came out a couple of months ago called More Than a Shirt, how football shirts explain global politics, power and money. And I know you guys have done a few episodes on football shirts and certainly discussed them a lot. So that was really good to do with him. We do have, I can't say what future episodes are, but we do have a Spanish themed one in 2 weeks, I think. Certain island club, we'll say. And go and listen to previous episodes. I think since I've last been on here, we've done the Graham Hunter episode with yourself, Nick. So if you like Spanish football, go check that out. There's a few Spanish things on there and other bits and bobs, such as we had the Farnham Town's very young chairman on last week talking about getting Peter Crouch at their game as mascot. So it's very random.
I saw that, very random indeed. But definitely go check out Los Boyos. It is a great podcast. And thank you again, Matt, for joining me this evening. Thank you very much, everybody at home, for joining us as well. We'll be back next week with another fantastic episode here on El Partido. But for now, hasta luego.